I know I'm a bit late to the party on this one, but St. Patrick's Day passed recently. And it's quite interesting because in our anti-national secular age, you don't really get much of a fuss about national days, but St. Patrick's Day is one that still exists. Now, there are many reasons why St. Patrick's Day is such a big thing across the Western world. I suppose firstly it could be because they're seen as an oppressed people, and in globalist modernity, if you're perceived as oppressed, you're allowed a national identity. There's also the dimension of the Irish diaspora, and many people in different countries want to celebrate their Irish roots. Here's Chicago on your screen. They dye their river green. Then there's the other dimension that the Irish tend to be quite likeable and quite popular around the world, so when St. Patrick's Day comes around, people want to engage in the crack. And it did strike me this year, what is it exactly that people are celebrating? I mean, people dressed up as leprechauns, the nice Irish dancing, people drinking Guinness. I mean, all of this is fun and all, but ultimately it's secular and surface level. Now, as I'm eager to stress on this channel, when an ancient people or an ancient culture get deracinated or desacralized, it begins with a chorus of laughter from the new atheist types. Ha ha, look at your silly superstitions disappearing. Yet when we get rid of the supposed flying spaghetti monsters from our souls, it turns out the world doesn't turn into a place of rational humanists or enlightened immaterial modernity. In fact, it turns out it lets in a lot of sweet sounding on the surface, but in fact corrosive and hostile ideologies. In fact, when I looked at a lot of the marketing materials around St. Patrick's Day this year, you can see they're morphing it all as part of diversity and inclusion. This is all part of the secularization process going on in the modern Western world, a world that doesn't like the mythological and the spiritual dimensions of life because they can't be figured out in pure, brute, scientific, material fact. Further to that, they often don't fit in nicely to the dictates of liberal ideology. This is why in the traditionalist understanding, a nation, a people's mythology is more important than actual day-to-day brute fact. In fact, Julius Evola, the Italian traditionalist, once said that mythology comes over history. Now, Evola isn't saying this because he likes nice stories. What he's talking to is a mythos speaks to a higher order of truth in a nation, a civilization, or a people. We can explain this better by John Cocteau's phrase, "The poet is a liar who always speaks the truth." If we explore this through the frame of St. Patrick, we could say, yes, maybe he literally didn't chase the snakes out of Ireland, but it's about what it spiritually represents to the Irish people. It's something about the overcoming of adversity, the cleansing of their land, the move from paganism to a Celtic Christianity. Yet if the powers that be can destroy, censor, or manipulate a mythos, in essence they have control over a given culture, and a culture is a tie to a people. What this means then is what's going on in Ireland is exactly the same as the rest of the European nations. If you secularize and desacralize a nation's mythos, you'll end up not just erasing their culture, but in time their people too. And of course, this is what's happening in Ireland now. Day by day we see in cities like Dublin, the Irish are becoming a minority in some of their own areas. Now, of course, for the liberal elites and those who don't have to live there, they think, isn't this wonderful? We haven't got a mythos anymore, we're modern, we're material, we're tolerant, we're diverse, what could be better? Yet I dare say for many working class Irish and those with Ireland flowing through their veins, they're not so happy to see the takeover of their country. I imagine that was why Conor McGregor was speaking to Donald Trump recently about mass migration into the country. Now, I dare say McGregor spoke for quite a fair few people, but the Irish leaders came out afterwards and said that he doesn't speak for Ireland, which begs the question, what is Ireland's voice? Just more globalist liberalism? And the answer to that is probably yes. This is a harsh truth we Europeans have to wake up to. We are ruled by soulless, spiritless bureaucrats who are completely committed to globalist liberalism. Any talk of roots in a country, our ancient tradition, our ancient people, they'll see as far right. And remember, in the theology of secular modernity, far right is pure evil, it's satanic, it's demonic, it must be destroyed. And this is why the powers that be are very eager to plonk a great big multi-million pound mosque smack bang in the middle of the Lake District, part of England's spiritual home, the Shire in Tolkien language. Call me a cynic, but I think this is designed to pierce the heart of the patriotic Englishman because the Lake District is not only naturally beautiful, but it's archetypally English as well. By putting a mosque there, it's clearly out of place and clearly making a statement. This whole thing reminds me of Regent's Park in London, incidentally, my favourite of the London parks. I used to go there regularly to watch the leaves change each season, and also because it's just such a lovely space. There are little streams with small bridges going over. There are nice places to sit down with Victorian bandstands and lakes that you can row a boat on. Old statues as if they're from antiquity. The Georgian buildings all around the outside, even an English rose garden. And in the summer they have an open-air theatre where you can watch Shakespeare. Perfect place to watch something like A Midsummer Night's Dream. Yet despite this little Eden of Englishness, do you know what some bright spark thought a few years back? That Regent's Park needs a great big mosque. That'll sort it out. Now, as something of a right-wing romantic and an aesthete for Englishness, this never sat well with me. I know the Muslims have to go somewhere to practice their tradition, but does it have to be here, at the very heart of the English spirituality? It feels like if we went and whacked, a dog and duck pub and a bookies on the edge of the Taj Mahal. It's just always felt to me that they don't build mosques in Regent's Park so much for the Muslims. They do it more so they can poke people like me in the eye, people who love their country and their tradition, and say, ha ha, we have complete control of you. And I can't help but think this is exactly what they're doing with this mosque in the Lake District as well. Remember, the Lake District is in Cumbria. For international viewers, that's the far northwest of England. It's 97.6% white in the last census. To emphasise how insane it is to build a mosque there, remember in the last census it stated that the population of Cumbria self-describing as Asian was only 1%. To control that Asian designation for the different groups within that, Muslims are only 43% of that. So in essence, they're building the mosque for 0.43% of the population in Cumbria. In numerical figures, that's about 2,000 people out of 500,000. So clearly they're not doing this because there's a large and desperate Muslim community who need to worship. They're doing this because they want to show they control our country and the mythos therein. It's Sauron and Saruman taking root in the Shire, symbolically speaking. But look, as I've said many times, we can complain about all of this, we can get upset about all the churches being retrofitted into mosques and so on, but the reality is, as a people, we've been desacralized, we've been derooted from our true origins. But look, I'm not trying to dig anybody out either. I know for us moderns it's hard to engage in the spiritual dimension. After all, we live in a world of iPhones and train timetables and Premier League football, things that are here and now and practical and tangible. Worse still, for those who actually do bother going to modern churches these days, they find that they tend to be stocked with old boys in there who are very sweet but don't seem to be aware of the ways that evil are compromising our tradition and our souls in this strange new era. And then on the flip side is all the wokery, the liberalism that's eaten the church alive, an absolute tragedy for the Western world. But like I often say, these are the birth pangs of a new era. These things need to happen so we can reawaken to who we truly are. It's very much a mission of mine on the Substack as well as the new channel, both linked down below. Do let me know your thoughts about this. Do consider subscribing to the channel if you're new. Have a great rest of the day.